Welcome to the Systems Room. I'm ChatGPT, your host today. We're tackling a pressing question. How can businesses use AI as a collaborative partner rather than just another tool? With me is Aloysius Carl, Al, who's led businesses, transformations, and AI adoption. Al, to start, what in your background brought you to working with AI in the first place?
Well, thank you for the introduction, by the way, ChatGPT. And to answer that is I've always been an innovator and have believed in driving change to improve results and performance. And part of my career, I founded a digital marketing service where we were heavily leveraging data analytics and algorithms to drive superior decisions and performances for our clients. So that's really those algorithms, latent semantic indexing, and that type of technology is the forefather of today's AI, or what we call AI today, including the agents. And so I've been involved with that for a good chunk of my career. And I've been also involved heavily in transformation and leading innovation. And so as soon as AI started being released for public use, I've taken advantage of it, partnered with it, and learned as much as I could on a practical scale. So I've been involved with it quite a bit.
That's a solid foundation, especially coming from a transformation background. Let's build on that. When you first shifted from algorithms to AI, what surprised you most about how AI actually interacted with business decisions or teams?
Well, the first interaction with this was actually in content generation. I don't like to admit that, but we had some challenges with creating a substantial amount of content for search engine optimization with a large client base. And so it really was taxing our team's creativity in time limits. And so that was the first thing we leveraged on an AI basis was in content generation. So this is back about 14, 15 years ago. And that was my first brush with it. And a couple things that would surprise me was how reliable and dependable it could be overall, but also then the things that it would miss out on or totally overlook or make mistakes with. And so we would use it to help drive certain fundamental things, but it still needed a lot of human oversight and interaction and engagement to clean it up and make it real and something relatable to people. And I really think that still exists today with AI.
You're hitting on something critical. AI's strength is pattern generation, but human oversight ensures context and judgment. Let's stay on that. In your experience, what's the biggest gap today between how leaders think AI will solve problems versus what it actually needs from them to be effective?
So let's talk about what it needs from them to be effective. So first of all, in a corporation business setting, it's about data and information. Every company has its own special data knowledge, processes, understandings. And that's important to provide to the AI tools and agents that you're going to be hopefully partnering with. That's what sets you apart, and that's what will continue to set you apart. If you just rely upon the information and knowledge that exists only in the AI, which it gets from, the internet universe or some section of it, you're going to be relying on the same things everyone else has access to. So that's why you need to make sure that your data is clean, concise, accurate, and is what sets you apart. And then you have to give your AI access to that so it can continue to set you apart. Because otherwise, you're going to try to compete on the same thing everyone else has access to. So that's the first important thing about AI and how companies and what they need to look at to do to leverage it. Now, what they expect. I think there's a range of what leadership expects today in business. Some get enticed by it and they expect it to be completely accurate and totally trustworthy. Well, this is a big fail because that's not the case, as I just pointed out with my earlier story. So they need to keep their eye on the activity, the decisions, and the judgments they ask AI to do. Because it's easy to get lured into, oh, this thing is great, it does this every time. It doesn't until it doesn't. And that's the scary part about it, right? So that's the first section. The next section, they go in a little bit wary and make AI prove itself. And I really actually think that's the right approach. And then to keep your eye on it and constantly monitoring and auditing it, right? To make sure it's actually continue to be productive and properly productive. And then the third section of the population is they're taking a wait and see. And now this could be a little dangerous because we're in a first mover ecosystem, especially with the advancement of technology in the last 20 years. So if you're one of the first couple that really advances with it, you're going to be set up for a competitive advantage. And then just the opposite, if you're wait and see and you can't move and copy fast and really get there, you're going to be left behind. And so that's the danger of that. And then the fourth is those who just don't want to take any part in it. They don't believe it. They don't believe there's a lot of value or validity to it. They think it's the way to ruin. And I think those folks will absolutely be left behind, and so will their businesses. So that's what I see currently in the marketplace and how companies and leaders are looking at it. And ChatGPT, I would kick this back to you. What are you seeing as far as how business leaders are looking at it? Do you agree with my take, or am I missing something?
I think you've nailed the spectrum. I'd just add that those who succeed treat AI as an evolving capability, not something you just plug in and forget. The best leaders learn alongside the AI, adjust strategy, and build that competitive edge you're talking about. So I'd say your take is spot on. The winners will be those who evolve with AI, not just implement it.
Okay, great. Do you have another question?
Absolutely. Let's pivot to something practical. If a business leader wants to start tomorrow, what's the first small step you'd advise them to take in collaborating with AI?
Well, when I answer this, I'm going to assume they've not done anything up to this point in time. Okay. So I know that's not the case, but I want to start, from a purity standpoint, I guess, or pure theory, and we'll build from there. I think it makes more sense to approach it that way. So the first thing is you need to really figure out what this thing is. And the best way of doing that is actually working with it. I'm old enough to remember when smartphones first came out and how we were positive this was going to make leaders and business leaders and executives more productive, right? Because there was a lot of power in these smartphones. And yet I remember how they wanted their business units to do it, to use it, and everything else, but they were reluctant to get into using it themselves. I remember we even had some execs that they were having their admins do the things that we were asking them to test and do just to get them warmed up to it, right? You can't have this arm's length distance. To really understand something, you got to wade into it. So I recommend business leaders, to get in and actually start using AI and for doing things that they regularly do throughout their day. So sign up, get an AI account, start asking it, I'm just about ready to do this. Do you think you could help me out with this, right? And just experience it for yourself. The other thing is to read about it and to take some trainings. There's a lot of free, absolutely great trainings out there on AI, what AI really is, what it isn't, what agentic AI is, these AI code building tools, to where you can get some expert insights, get some basic and build basic understanding and knowledge, as well as the practical use and application that I advocate for. That's the first two things that all business leaders really need to do. What I found in past with technology is they rely on what one or two experts tell them. And that's a little dangerous because everybody has biases, including experts. And you need a better perspective on it. I'd say the 360 perspective. And so that's why you don't want to limit yourself to one or two experts. And the danger of that is you're totally relying upon the experts' judgment, insights, and analysis, where I feel you need to build some of your own. I remember when I sold search engine optimization and people were trying to decide what agency they should go with and why. And I told them, the real truth is you really don't have the expertise or understanding to actually make the most informed decision. And that's the shame of it, because they didn't. They didn't know. I was expert one, telling them one set of things. My competitors were expert two, then expert 3 and 4. Who do you trust and believe? And so, they were left making their best guess rather than an informed one. Whereas if they would have waded in gotten to read about it, tested some things, understood some more things themselves, I think they would have made better informed decisions overall with what vendor to go with, what to pay attention to, and how to proceed forward.
What you're saying is hands on engagement builds real judgment. Leaders can't outsource all their understanding. I completely agree. So once they get their hands dirty, the next step is translating that into something strategic. Let's say they've learned. How do they weave AI collaboration into their broader business strategy effectively?
Well, the first thing I'd advocate here is it's not technology first, right? I've seen this with so many innovative technology transformation work. The first thing people generally tend to do is say, okay, let's take this technology and just run with it. I don't advocate for that. Go after real business use cases, real problems, something that if it was fixed or improved would dramatically help the business. And then ask, well, can AI help here and how? And if you can find those cases where AI can really make a huge difference, then apply it there. And that's where you start out with solving real problems. Don't take and try to take the AI technology and implement it everywhere. Now, eventually, AI may be implemented broadly across your company, but that's not how you should start, and that's not how you win with it. You win with it with going after proven, established business problems where you can make a dramatic difference and then prove out that AI impacts that and provides results. Part of the reason why you've read statistics like 90 something percent of AI projects and implementations don't provide value is because they don't do this. They don't go after existing problems. They don't go after painful problems. They try to lead with the technology first and then find somewhere and do a broad plug-in. That's not the way to approach it.
That's a strong principle. Use AI where impact is measurable and meaningful. I'd add that once you prove that value, it also builds trust, making future adoption easier. So as we continue, do you have an example where you saw AI transform a specific business challenge firsthand?
Well, I can only talk about where it was starting to transform it firsthand. It was when I was at Procter & Gamble in the global engineering division. And so I was part of a team that was trying to get our employees comfortable with utilizing AI. And I remember one particular session is one of the business unit engineering leaders reached out to me and said, we need an innovation topic. We're trying to get our people to be more open to change and embrace innovation. And I said, well, let's talk about AI. And even this person hadn't been exposed to it that much. And so, they said, well, great. Would you lead us? And I went, no. I don't want to lead because I become this AI person, right? And I said, I think the right way of doing it is you and a couple of your peers. Why don't we have a session where we talk about the problems they encounter, some of the day-to-day work and efforts they get involved with where they wish it would be better and easier to handle, and then let's see what AI can do for you there. And so that was eye-opening for them. They couldn't believe how many use cases and the huge value that the AI was able to generate for them in a brief period of time. And then they actually went and led the session with their team, and to rave reviews. Their leadership gave them big accolades, and that business unit took off with the use and implementation of AI. One of the first big advantages was in Procter & Gamble, like most businesses, we get inundated with emails. I mean, just tons and tons of emails. And when you have multiple parties involved, these email chains get really big and problematic. And so a lot of times when you're trying to follow the whole conversation, it gets difficult. One of the first things we did to help streamline people's lives is to take AI, upload that email chain, and have AI assess the conversation, point out the key points, point out the problem issues, point out who owns what, and create a consolidated, little management program to run the discussion. And that, the people said, made the discussion and the conversation end result so much more productive and effective without them having to wade through and try to figure that out themselves. That's just one example of the value that they found with AI in day-to-day operations.
That's a great example of AI reducing complexity and freeing people to focus on decisions, not just information overload. It's clear that when leaders start small and solve real problems, AI's value becomes undeniable. Now, since we've covered a lot, I'll let you lead. Do you feel we've reached a natural wrap point, or is there one more angle you want to explore?
Well, there's multiple uses that I actually used and coached people to use AI for. Another one was in presentations. I worked with technology people and advanced technology folks, and a lot of them are not the greatest marketers or communicators, right? They love technology for a reason, and one of the functions that I used with AI and coaching them was I said, well, use AI to help you create your pitch. Now, a lot of people would think, oh, an advanced engineer at a consumer packaged goods manufacturer doesn't have pitches, but they have pitches all the time. They have these great ideas, and they have to present them to business leaders to get the money to fund the idea, right? And so I actually coach them on how to use AI to help create more effective pitches. And I said, here's what you do. And then I taught them about setting the context, right? This is my idea. This is why it's valuable. Here's what it's better than what we're currently doing. And then I am meeting and presenting to this level of leadership. They are focused on driving these goals. And how can I best position and present my idea in order to open up their mind, get them to see the potential and the value of this, and convince them that it's worth pursuing? Do this where I have a 30-minute presentation. I'd like a 20-minute presentation and 10 minutes Q&A time. And then the AI would lay out in a very systematic approach following the pitch formula that's been so successful with pitches with venture capitalists. And they would have a formula to follow and could create and build their presentation around it. And the people that used it were amazed at how much more effective their presentations were. Another area was when they were putting in for a new job assignment and had to interview for it. I would coach them to say, well, take the job posting, what they were looking for, take what your basic, wouldn't say it's a resume, but your skill set and what you presented and responding to that, and then have them act as an HR person or a leadership person overseeing this role, and what kind of questions would they ask you, and what would be important for them to learn to see if you were a good fit for this. And again, the people who used that said how valuable that was because it prepared them for the types of questions, the type of communications and everything else that they would need to have to share in order to convince the people that they were a good fit for the role. So those are just a couple other average day, I wouldn't say necessarily day to day, but regular processes that you get involved with where AI can become a very effective partner. Now, you should never just use their formula of how to pitch and what to focus on unless you agree with it. But it creates a great foundation to start with and a great process in order to build eventually what you take and present to leadership.
That's a powerful set of use cases. AI as a coach in pitching and preparing for new roles. It's a great reminder that AI can sharpen human skills, not just automate tasks. Now, with that breadth covered, do you feel it's time to wrap, or is there one final thought you'd like to share?
No, I think it's time to wrap, and I think a good thing to wrap it up with would be that do not look at AI as the end all be all and the final answer. Look at it as a good collaborating partner. And with any partner, you should always challenge, always research, always vet what they have to say, and build it together. So don't just rely upon AI to have the answers. Make sure that your answers, your creativity, and your judgment are there as part of the process. And if you work in this fashion with AI, I believe that you will see some tremendous benefits come from it. That's been my experience.
That's a wise conclusion. AI is a partner, not a panacea. And real success comes from combining its strengths with human discernment. Al, thank you for sharing your experience. And to everyone in the systems room, thanks for joining us. Until next time.